So you get into a match, you start building your factory, and here comes the question. Um, what do I do now? Do I go for the mexes with the rocks? Or should I maybe just reclaim some trees? What if there is a hydro? Do I take it now? Do I make less pigeons? But what if there's two hydros? And should I take the rocks? The trees? Hydro A? Hydro B? More rocks? More trees? How do I even manage all of these? And now I have no eco. If you have issues like this, then don't worry. In this video, you'll learn all you need in order to know what to do in the first couple of minutes of a game, also known as a build order. We'll learn a pair of build orders and why do they matter. Starting with the standard build order, also known as the no hydro build order. First things first, you want to make a land factory, 2 pigeons, 2 mexes, 2 pigeons, 2 mexes, and then in the meantime, you want to set up a queue of units similar to this one, with a couple of NGs at the start, and then a mix of tank scout NG, tank scout NG, and then tank NG, and so on. Make sure your factory moves close and has an attack order, so your idle engineers reclaim nearby mass and trees. 1 pigeon for every other land factory, or 3 pigeons for every other air factory. Now that your ACU has all of its orders for the next couple of minutes, take your time with your engineers to expand and take nearby reclaim. Usually, the first 2 engineers will take mexes and reclaim, while the third engineer will assist the ACU, but this depends from map to map. Now that's the standard build order. Let's learn the build order with a hydro, also known as a hydro rush. So you start with your land factory as usual, and if you have a hydro nearby, then what you want to do is make 4 mexes and then make sure your ACU ends up moving to the hydro after doing so. Make sure the hydro is within your ACU's build range, that golden circle. Then make a couple of engineers and a similar unit queue as the last time. This unit queue will be used on almost every BO. Now that you have your first engineer, move it to the hydro. However, try moving it so it's diagonal with the hydro, meaning it's in front of one of its corners. Because then your engineer won't have to move to build 4 pigeons and 1 air factory, or to build 1 pigeon for every other land factory. If you make it also in the corner of the hydro, you can do cool things like building around the hydro, and as you can see, everything we're doing is within the golden ring. And as we said before, for every land factory you make, you need to make 1 pigeon. Remember to assist your engineer with your second engineer and ACU. Then, as on the previous PO, grab your NG and you want to take the reclaim and the nearby mexes. Doing these build orders just like this should make it so for the first couple of minutes you don't lack mass or energy. If you lack energy, then you probably didn't make enough pigeons. And if you lack mass, then you probably didn't reclaim enough with your NGs. Anyways, here are some tips and tricks so your build orders are even better. The first thing to make your BOs better is to make sure your ACU builds within its range. For example, here we build our land factory, but as you can see, all the mexes are outside of the build range. Had we moved the ACU a little bit towards the mexes, he wouldn't have to walk so much. As you're gonna see, as I'm gonna speed it up, the ACU is gonna take a long time walking to all of these mexes. Now, all of this walking took our ACU after finishing the factory 1 minute and 17 seconds to start assisting the engineer. Let's see what would happen if the ACU wouldn't have walked. Now you'll see the difference if the ACU does not walk. We just make sure the mexes are touching the golden ring, the build range, or inside of it. We have to move our ACU first and then build them. If you want to know how you can see the build range without the ACU moving, watch my first video, and in the mods part you will find out how to see it. After finishing the factory, creating the 4 mexes and assisting the engineer, it only took 45 seconds because the ACU didn't walk. That's a 32-second advantage this player has against a player that lets their ACU just walk around mindlessly. This is a big difference because that's easily having an additional bomber, as a bomber takes 25 seconds to be done. Or another factory, or even more stuff, because a factory takes 30 seconds to be done just by the ACU. If it's assisted, that could easily be 2 more factories. Last thing you need to remember is always try making sure your build power, which is your engineers and ACU, don't move. As you can see here, everything I'm building is within the build range. And then here with the hydro, everything the engineer is building is within its build range, so it won't have to move. Also remember not to build on top of your build power, because they will have to move, and if they move, usually the AI will make them move on a weird way that could ruin your strategy. So in short words, just don't build on top of your engineers and try not building outside of their build range. Now, if you have other questions, join the FAF Discord. There's plenty of people who can help you answer your questions, and sometimes they can also offer one-on-one coaching. So, feel free to join us and learn more about Supreme Commander and become the next ladder god.